Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Rohan Chakravarti, and with me today, I've got a very special guest, Badger's Senior Associate Athletic Director, Justin Doherty, otherwise known as Professor Doherty. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I appreciate it, Rohan. Good to see you.
I appreciate you taking the time. Before we get, into kind of the breadth of what you do and things like that, first, for those that don't know, can you just maybe explain what you kind of do in the athletic department on a day-to-day basis, as well as a professor?
Sure. So I'm in my 29th year in the athletic department, or about to finish my 29th year. Currently, I'm the member of the senior staff. There's about 10 or 12 of us that are basically the management team for the athletic department. I have oversight responsibilities in areas like communications and marketing and video and community relations, and um, I have oversight of like sport administration, oversight of both our men's and women's basketball programs as well, and I handle our FOIA requests, our open record requests. I'm a liaison to Big Ten Network, so there's enough on my plate to keep you hopping.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the significant amount of day-to-day tasks as a senior, as a member of the senior staff. How do you kind of go about balancing the number of different avenues that you guys have to cover on a daily basis, understanding how important each and every kind of field is to the athletic department?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody has the great answer to that question. How do you balance it all? You certainly need to prioritize things on a day-to-day basis. I think I think through experience, you learn how to manage things, you learn how to manage people, you learn how to, what's, after a while, you've kind of seen some things. And so what's lots of times, what's coming, so you're able to kind of just manage through things. But to be honest, on a day-to-day basis, you never know what's going to happen either. And so there is a little bit of that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting. But that's also what makes it challenging at times too.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine it's definitely a lot to handle, but I'm sure that there's a thrill into that as well. But I mean, you're obviously in your 29th year here. Not all 29 years was with the senior staff. What kind of sparked your interest in joining, the athletic department kind of side of not only football operations, but really sports in general, starting back when you initially joined, not even at Wisconsin, but overall?
Yeah, I mean, going back to my time when I was a little kid growing up in the Detroit area, my dad actually was a sports information director at the University of Detroit, and in the mid 1960s, and he, I kind of had similar interests growing up. I loved to write. I loved sports. I sort of gravitated to kind of the journalism side of things. I didn't even really know what sports PR or journalism really was kind of as a youngster, but you get older and you start to you start to understand your own talents and things that you like. And like I said, I kind of gravitated toward journalism, and I was the sports editor of my high school newspaper. I ended up going to undergrad at Michigan State, and one of the key things that happened for me in my life, for my career, was my dad had gotten out of the business, but he knew the sports information people from Michigan State and took me up there to meet him when I was a junior in high school. And a couple of years later, when I was enrolled in school, they ended up hiring me, and I, worked there as a student in their office for 5 years while I was in undergrad. And then I went to did a very short internship at the University of Florida. I wasn't it just wasn't where I wanted to be at the time, as it turns out. So I ended up coming home, became a sports editor of a small newspaper just south of Lansing, Michigan, in Marshall. Did that for about 8 months, and then got back into college athletics. And I've worked at Northern Michigan for 2 years. I worked at the University of North Dakota for 2.5 years. And then I came to Wisconsin in '94, and have just worked through a variety of different positions here at UW.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the different roles that kind of got you to where you were today. We're on two different parts of the business. You and the athletic kind of relations or the athletic department, whereas I'm obviously on the news kind of side with covering, the sport. With your different experiences, what have you seen kind of the pros and cons in a way of the different roles that you've kind of gone through, be it on the media side, on the PR side, or, as high as you are right now as a senior um, staff member?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the one common thread I think is that journalists and um, people like me in the positions that I'm in the athletic department, I think in a lot of ways we're all storytellers, and you know there are different stories to tell for sure, and different angles to take, and so on. But the media are out there telling stories, and then organizations have their stories to tell. And I think once the internet became the internet, 25, 30 years ago, it gave organizations like an athletic department or a pro sports team or whatever, it gave people the power to tell their own story. And so, you sort of didn't, when I first started, if I wanted to get a story out there about an athlete or a coach or something, I had to pitch it to a member of the media. Um, Now we still do that, certainly, but you don't have to. Everybody, and as well as I do, like anybody with a laptop computer or with a cell phone is a storyteller now. Um, so it's changed a lot. I think both professions are both kind of sides of that coin. The journalist side is an essential role in our democracy, frankly, and then on the other side, PR people and so on have an essential job to do for an organization. So both perfectly valid and interesting and exciting professions, and kind of just depends on what's right for you.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the PR side, right? And how it's an essential portion, not only to an athletic department, but kind of the flow of an overall program. It seems like on the outside, a lot of people view PR in more of a negative light. It's something like, it seems like something that people are adjusting to rather than having people just speak necessarily what they're trying to say at times. Where do you kind of see PR in the fact of how integral it is to a department and why it's kind of essential rather than a detriment as some people view it?
Well, I think PR is essential for an organization because it serves a storytelling role for sure. Um, it serves a role of you know uh, protecting members of an organization in a lot of instances. It serves a role of preparing people to when they're going to speak, whether it's give a speech somewhere or whether it's speaking at a press conference or speaking to doing an interview, whatnot. Um, I don't think any of us would want to go into a situation where we were gonna speak or write something or communicate in some way, and not be prepared to go do that. So it serves an important role for an organization. I think in the best of circumstances, the PR person is a liaison with the media, and is a you know is develops a good working relationship, a mutual respect relationship between the two sides, but also realizing um, that there are differing objectives sometimes, and so you work through that as just you know be a professional and work through it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said earlier, you've spent several years, not only, in the role that you've kind of been in, but kind of, been an associate SID here since 1994, gone through, seen a lot of different teams, both football, basketball, even hockey. Channeling back, what are some of the best or maybe most informative experiences you've kind of had throughout that period that have kind of helped you along the way?
Boy, it's a lot of years to think about. You know, I think at the end of the day, I think you remember the people. Um, you know, you remember the coaches you've worked with. You remember the athletes you've worked with. You remember media that you've worked with. I think you remember good times. You remember certainly big wins and memorable moments at Camp Randall and at the Kohl Center and on going to the Final Four. And I've been to the Rose Bowl 8 times. And when I worked at Northern Michigan, we won the national championship in hockey. That was my first year there. Um, so you have all these super kind of high point experiences with people, and so those are memorable because of the people. And then of course there's down moments too, and there's difficult moments, and there's mistakes that are made, and all those kind of things too. And you remember the people you go through those with as well, and those are all just shared experiences. And so like I said, without the people, it's you know without the people in it, Camp Randall is just a building, and so is the Kohl Center and other places I've worked too. So the people are what make it come alive, and and all of the, like I said, the ups and downs, the good times, the bad times, the celebrations, the sadnesses. It all kind of comes together to make create your experience.
I mean, some, specific examples that you've kind of provided this year in terms of tasks and things like that you guys have had to do. One, go dating back to the first week at Camp Randall Stadium this week, you guys pointed out the sound system and how, you hear criticism or the questions that fans have, but obviously have to respond to that in a certain manner. Can you take me through kind of the process that the athletic department goes through with complaints or different kind of not criticisms, but different ways that people bring issues up and how you guys are able to respond to those type of issues?
Yeah, I, I think it's important to listen first. So if it's a fan, if it's just somebody who's not a fan who maybe communicates to us about something, there's a variety of communications we get on a daily basis, but it's important to listen. It's important to try to understand what people are saying and what they're may have an issue with, or what their concern is, or whatnot. Um, I think once you listen, then you can formulate a response. And I think anytime you respond, you want to be respectful, and you want to be informative. You want to be truthful, um, and I really think civility goes a long way with when you're responding to folks who have a question about something or an issue with something. There's uh, I just recently had somebody write to me about something they saw on one of our social media channels, and just had like a really respectful back and forth with this person. And you figure out that when you're respectful to people and they're respectful to you, when we're then responding um, isn't too difficult. And but I think you just want to keep it informative, truthful, respectful.
On a grander scale, a different example, I mean, dating back to last year, and something that you've seen a couple of times here during your tenure at Wisconsin, a significant coaching change. That kind of process obviously entails a lot more planning and entails a lot more behind the scenes work. But once the move is actually made, can you take me through that kind of process to how you guys are, scrambling not only to get him or her kind of the necessary resources, but also put together the press conference and those kind of things in the days leading up to, or in the days after a move is announced?
Yeah, I think well, the first thing I would say anytime there's a change made like that is you remember. I try to remember that there's people involved, that there's human beings involved, there's families involved, um, there's change involved that maybe people weren't planning on, and so those become, you try to keep all that at the forefront. And having said that, you also have a job to do, and there's also a ton of things that go into preparing for an announcement, a press conference, the written materials, the social media part of it. Um, there's a number of people, several people in our communications office, several people in our administration would normally get involved in things like that, in situations like that. Um, you are, when you're setting up an actual announcement event, a lot goes into that. You want to, depending on what the situation is, if you're announcing a brand new coach or something, you want to make it celebratory and exciting, and you want to put the coach and your athletic director and your staff and school and everything in the best light possible. And so you really try to do that. We Barry Alvarez's retirement kind of press conference and event and stuff. We had a different feel, but you're also trying to, that's a change you knew was coming, and so you can plan for that. And again, like, you want the event to be respectful of the moment. You want it to be respectful of the people involved, and so they're all different. No two of them are ever exactly the same. And if it's a change in coaching, change in a coaching position, there's difficulty and challenging, and it can be sad at times. And when you're hiring somebody new, you're like, there's a new beginning and a new start, and it's fresh and it's exciting and so on. So there's all these different, they're all different, but I think, like I said, you really want to just respect the moment, respect the people, and do what's right for, for whatever the moment calls for.
Yeah, I think that that's, the right way to go about it. My last question for you today is in regards to, an important topic, and one I think that's become a little more prevalent in today's world, and that's managing a brand. Obviously, in the athletic department, you guys are balancing the on-field product, what goes on behind the scenes and things like that. But another portion of, the on-field product is what you kind of put to social media, how you guys kind of portray yourselves and things like that. What conversations go about, or how does the process go about to kind of, try and find ways to grow your brand, but also do so in a courteous and respectful manner that uphold the university's values?
Yeah, I think thoughtfulness is really something I would, anytime you're representing your brand in whatever way you're representing it, whether it's on social media, whether you're speaking, whether you're writing, um, taking time to be thoughtful about what you're going to say, what your what are your talking points, what message are you trying to deliver at any given point in time, um, is important. And uh, we have a number of people who work together in any given instance. So if we're, you know, well, like you mentioned, we were just talking about football, about a football coach, or like we had a new football coach last fall. Um, uh, a lot of discussion goes into how you want to present that, and how you want to present your brand, and how do you want to present, what message are you trying to send. And so I think when you take the time to do that, and you take the time to have those conversations, and you're thoughtful, it's not always going to be perfect every single time, but um, but I think you stand a pretty good chance of communicating what it is you want to communicate. And and so we have our we have marketing folks, we've got communications folks, we've got our senior staff, um, we've got video content people, social media, graphic designers, and all these areas kind of come together. Um, some are in a more strategic role, and some are in a more tactical role, but they all come together to hopefully present the message that we want to present at any given moment.
Yeah, I think that the process itself goes on, and it's an important one. But
Yeah.
I do want to extend my thank you for your time today. Um, for those of you guys that don't know, this is Badger's Senior Associate Athletic Director, Justin Doherty, otherwise known as Professor Doherty to his students. Thank you for coming on, kind of sharing your experience of some of the behind the scenes kind of stuff, things that we don't always hear necessarily in the public about how the athletic department kind of goes about its business on a day to day, and kind of what entails on a regular day. Wanted to say appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll be back as always. Bucky's fifth quarter. A lot of content coming out ahead of this game, and we're also going to be there for Braden Locke's first start. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys later.